Okay, so last time we covered for loops, which are the most basic and most often used types of loops in Java. But there's another type of loop, and it is called the while loop, and we're going to cover that in this section. So what we want to do is create a new file, just a text document, and call it lesson7.java. And we'll go ahead and drag that into Notepad++. Let's say public class lesson 07 public static void main string args. And the basic anatomy of a while loop is sort of like this. You just say while and set up a set of brackets, and some sort of an escape condition goes in here. So your while loop will run as long as whatever your escape condition here is true. So to give you an example, let's go ahead and import scanner object. And we'll create a new scanner object. Let's call it scanner equal I. All right, now we'll prompt. Please enter a number. So we'll enter in a number here, and what I want to do is just print each of the digits of that number. So I will say while number is greater than 0, I can print the last digit on the right. So what this is going to do, and I'll print this out, I'll do number and I'll use modulus 10. So whenever you have a number, if you divide it by modulus 10, it will give you the remainder of the division by 10, which will be always equal to the last digit on the right of the number. So if I print this, no matter what number I put in there, it'll print the last digit on the right for me. So I'll show you how that works. And then once I do that, once I've printed a digit, if I'm just going to print all the digits in a number, right after that I want to divide the number by 10 to get rid of that last digit, and I'll write that down too. So that shaves off the last digit. And basically, because we're using integers, we'll divide by 10, and if it's uneven, then it'll just chop everything past the right of the decimal point off, so your number will just be one digit less each time. So that's how that works. So if I were to give myself a number here, let's go int number equals keyboard.next int. So it's an integer, so we're going to do the modulus 10, and when we divide by 10 anytime, it's just going to take off that last digit. So I will run that, and if I enter a number, enter that, and you can see the funny thing is that it kind of prints them in reverse order, but it does print out all the digits, but it takes the right one first. So it'll take the right one by using modulus 10, because this divided, or if we do modulus 10 on this, it will actually give us back a 1. Then we divide by 10, and this divided by 10 is not an even number, but it'll go in roughly about 65,432 times, and then it'll have some change left over to the right of the decimal point, and that'll get all cut off because it's an int. So then we're left with 2 when we do the modulus again. and then so on and so forth until we get to the last number. But that's not all a while loop like this can do. We can do some things that are a little bit even more complicated than that. So let's try using instance variables this time. Let's go with static int. Let's set number up as an instance variable, and I can keep this here. And I'll set up another one called static int digits. So what we're going to do is not only are we going to print out the digits in a number, but we're actually going to count them up and see how many digits there are. So what we do there, same thing, I'm going to use a user input for the number itself, and I'm going to actually, instead of this, I'm going to initialize digits here to 0, and then I'm going to get rid of this stuff in the while loop, and then I'm going to create a new method called count digits. So I'll say public static void count digits, and let's close this out so we can see most of this, and I'm going to copy, or actually cut and paste that into my count digits method. So I can say while number is greater than 0, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this digits variable and I'm going to add 1 to it each time the loop runs. So the loop is going to run how I control it to run. So this is going to be the major difference between a while loop and a for loop, is that you have a little bit more control over how things are set up, because you have to set up the iteration and your conditions and things like that. It's kind of more of a manual setup. So if I here go, I'm going to add 1 to digits each time the loop runs, and then I'm also going to divide number by 10. So you can see in this very manual way, I'm not actually doing plus plus or minus minus on the number. I'm using the variable number as my iterator, and instead of adding or subtracting or anything like that, each time the loop runs, I'm going to divide it by 10, and I'm going to continue the loop until we get down to 0. So really, now all that's left to do is run count digits and print out my results. Oops. I'm going to print out the number, and it has digits, number of digits in it. So if I run this, I'll enter a number. It should give me back 6 digits. It's giving me a 0 right here, so I have to figure out what happened. And what did happen is, in this loop here, number actually gets down to 0. So what I would probably want to do is create a new number value in here, and I'll just call it int num equals, and I'll set it equal to the value of number. So it can be a placeholder for that value, so the value of my number never changes. And I can change all these to num. Oops. And then if I do that again, and same number, and you can see I get my original number back, and it has 6 digits. So there is how you use a while loop to manipulate numerical values.